This is a Crypto Legends podcast.
Building and scaling teams is a complex process that requires attention to various factors, including breaking down the silos, scalability, culture and values, maintaining productivity and engagement, and leadership. Today, we're bringing the HR guru behind the HR hints, Roza Szafranek, onto the show. But before we begin, let's break down the key topics we cover today. Scaling in the context of the raises, from seed to Series A and Series A to Series B. Team building, that's finding suitable candidates in an emerging market, upskilling and growing while keeping the company culture the same and more. Strategy, from maintaining team productivity during rapid growth, common pitfalls to avoid, and balancing speed with thoughtfulness when making decisions. Last but not least, we talk about leadership. That's the role of leadership as the company grows, adapting leadership styles to suit different stages of growth and more. Stay tuned. Building and scaling teams is a complex process that requires attention to various factors, including breaking down silos, scalability, culture, and values, maintaining productivity and engagement, and leadership. Today, we have an HR guru behind HR hints, Roza Szafranek. Roza, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I'm super happy to talk to you today. I'm the founder and CEO of HR Hints, and HR Hints is the boutique operating in a subscription model. So we are working with companies, basically tech companies, startups, scale-ups, and acting as an external HR team. So we are working with companies from pre-seed up to Series C, usually. So we are helping them grow, but we are also doing all the culture stuff. So organizational culture, basically things.
Cool, that sounds super exciting. So today we're going to also go into a little bit of numbers. So let's start with scaling and funding. Given the market conditions, we have stabilized somehow, but let's talk about funding and the scaling relationship, like how it goes together. So first, according to Crunchbase report, there was like 82% fall in funding from 9.1 billion during the first 3 months of 2022 to 1.7 billion in 2023. So we've seen it manifest in various ways, for instance, scaling down a lot of companies. As an example, Rapid, that was valued at 1 billion last year, that announced 50% cut of staff. So my question is, can you talk about how was it been going for HR Hints, HR-wise during the past year?
Yeah, it was like a crazy time. And as far as I know, it will be even more crazy in the next year and in the next coming 2-3 years. So what we've seen so far is the fact that 2 years ago, we were having a lot of talent work. Just to give you the understanding and just to give you the context of the scale, we are working with companies between 25 and having between 25 and 40 companies each month. So we are having quite a big scale, and half of our business is talent acquisition, and the other half is people and culture. So we see this both areas. And when 2 years ago, when we were having very high valuations and very fast pace of hiring, most of our work was talent acquisition. So building teams, helping people build new structures, building new departments, also in other countries. And what we see from the last 1.5 year, is the cut moment. As you said, we are doing cutting stuff. And what's the most important here, I think, is the fact that just to keep the efficiency high and just to keep teams lean and just to put main effort on effectiveness, we see that even if we cut 25, even up to 30% of people, sometimes we just cut off whole teams. Sometimes we are just cutting, through the organization, going cross the organization and teams, and we see that effectiveness after 3 months, after 2 quarters, is not lower. So that's the main conclusion, that these teams were just too big. So very often, the main answer of funders, the main answer of leaders, was just to grow by adding new people, by bringing new stuff on board. And it's not always the best solution because of the fact that some competences or some areas you can just cover by especially using AI right now, you can just cover by automatization, by standardization inside the company. And bringing new people, especially in repeatable tasks, is not always the best way to grow.
That's super interesting insight. But on a little bit more positive note, I guess, not cutting, but growing. So, and I understand this is going to be like a comprehensive question, but could you at high level, tell us a bit more about scaling, how does it look like from seed to Series A in terms of HR?
When it comes to scaling, when we prepare to Series A, very often it's just the global series. So funders are getting money to go international or to bring standards that they've built, they have when it comes to the product, when it comes to the engineering solutions. They want to spread it, usually to the new countries, usually they are gaining new markets. And in HR, the crucial point is to go global, not only when it comes to hiring first head of sales in US, for example, or if you are a US company, hire the first European, like in UK, in Germany, or in Spain, whatever, a person. It's the first step, and it's the strategy, and it's globalization strategy, of course. But what's even more important is to really have the background in organization for that. So just to have a very well-built onboarding, for example, to make it easy to bring new people on board. Just before you go global and before you hire people internationally, you really need to have standardized or just prepared for standardization all the people stuff. So, of course, I don't mean building hundreds of procedures or building politics. And it's not about, becoming corporation because you've just fundraised Series A. But people very often think about people and culture area as the black box. So, okay, whatever happens, we'll just do the onboarding on our own. We'll just explain everything hands-on. And there are a lot of things that are repeatable. In onboarding process, for example, when you are getting new people on your deck, up to 70% of stuff is repeatable and can be described and can be ordered. Yeah, just to make it easier for someone new to not to be so new for a very long time. So that's the goal of the onboarding. So on this example, using the onboarding process, I want to stress it very strongly that explaining to yourself or just finding excuses that chaotic hiring or finding an excuses and uses the excuses that, okay, it's the startup and it needs to be in a mess. It's not a thing because you are spending a lot of time on handling things case by case, and you are just slower in scaling due to the fact that you are not prepared for that. So that's the most crucial thing when it comes to seed change to Series A, because you really need to have the strong people background here.
That's great. So I think I'm hearing here like nailing the procedures, policies, and all of that, kind of like how you do it so that it's optimized in a way that it's not really a mess, and getting rid of the excuses that, hey, we're a startup, so we can just like, it can be the mess. Cool. And similar question, but this time from Series A to Series B. So what would be kind of like the points of focus?
Here, absolutely crucial is it's much more people and culture area. So not hanging on everything when it comes to decisions, when it comes to crucial processes on funders. So very often we are, after Series A, we are already having mid-level management. So no matter how you call them, if they are like VPs, directors, heads, no matter. Like, I mean the situation when you are having 2, 3, 5 funders, no matter, and they are not needed to make the most crucial decisions. So just to have the situation that company is, of course, not self-managed, because if I haven't seen a self-managing company yet. I'm still waiting for it. I hope that maybe it's possible one day. But so far, we really need leaders, and we really need funders to give the main direction and to set up the general goals. But keeping them involved in operational work, keeping them involved in everyday work, in everyday setting the goals process is just a mistake. And it really stops companies from growth, especially when we have the situation that usually we are having, of course, depending on the business and on the technology behind it, but usually we are having more than 100 people on board between Series A and when we are raising Series B. So we really need to have strong leadership construct, and we really need to empower these people already and to delegate to them. And what's super important, delegation is not like, okay, I'm too busy, take it from me. We are having 4 steps of empowering leaders. So firstly, showing the context. After that, letting them shadow us, how we do that. Third step, shadowing them, how they do that. And 4th step, accepting the way how they do that. So it is super important to go through all these 4 steps, because very often we as funders, we keep for quite a long time all the power and all the final word in every area. And after that, we are so tired and we are so overwhelmed that we are not able to follow. So we say, okay, just take it from me. It's highest time. I'm done. And people are not able to take it. And in that situation, we think, okay, maybe they are too weak. I've hired too weak heads or directors. And, we are getting in this vicious circle. We are changing the mid-level management, and it's not the way. So we need to start delegating and by empowering people from the first day when we hire them during the Series A building company process.
And what are the typical situations when HR hints would come in? What kind of problems would you solve when the scaling happens?
Especially when we are having these 2 areas, talent acquisition and people and culture. In talent acquisition, very often we come to the company in a situation when people are just out of ideas where from they could bring more candidates and hire. There's friends, there's colleagues from university, there's colleagues from the previous companies, or when they have first wrong experiences. So if they've made some mistakes, if they had these bad experiences when it comes to hiring, very often someone super experienced, someone with 15 years experience with building 2 or 3 structures like we need to build in his or her previous experience, and it doesn't work. So someone is not motivated enough, someone is not involved into the building process. So that's the first moment when we are needed. Very often in the second area, so people and culture area, people don't measure the work as it is. So they micromanage. So they bring people to work. To work, I mean like stationary, so to the office, or they monitor how long they work, or they are excited that, okay, someone sent me an email on Saturday at 10 p.m. Oh, how engaged is this person? So, building the performance review picture on artifacts, not on facts, actually. So, and saying like, I really don't know if my people perform or not. I don't know if my leaders are good enough or not. I'm not able to follow how they really work. What's the effectiveness? What is the performance they do? So that's these are the crucial points when we are getting in. And of course, like individual cases. So very often the conflicts, very often we call it the growth tensions. So old hires, as we call them, old gangsters. So people who know startup from the past. So do you remember when the company was having 10, 15 people on board, and they say like, we've mentioned the procedures and politics, and I'm not a fan of having a lot of docs with the documents, but it really needs to be structured sometimes, especially when it comes to the hiring process. Because if we don't structure, we are really giving the whole field to the biases. And very often, OGs, so old gangsters, are strongly against. So they say like, okay, we are having 100 people on board, but we don't want anything to be different than previously because we don't want to work for a corporation. So this first growth tensions are also the moment when we are getting in.
Okay, that's super interesting. And just moving on a little bit to team building. I think you touched upon it a little bit, but when scaling teams, how do you prioritize hiring? What criteria become relevant when you actually hire people?
Very often we ask that question, because very often people think that the candidate is the most important and it is the only important element in a recruitment process. So find me the star, find me the rock star, find me the unicorn who will lead, team of sales or team of marketing or team of engineering, whatever. And actually, of course, it is important what kind of candidates we are bringing to the process. But what's super important as well is the fact what exactly we know about what or who we need. And very often, we don't know in startups, scale-ups, we are not aware who exactly we are looking for. So the most important thing here is the awareness of what the role needs to deliver in the first 3 months. So not to overhire, not to think like, okay, we are having a lot of duties on our list, so let's bring another junior, let's bring another regular, just to double that work and just to scale the work with the team we have. It's not working like that, basically. So not the fact that, okay, the company we observe or the company that is our authority has already hired CFO. Do we really need it? What kind of goals, what kind of delivery we will expect after 90 days of work? That's the first point and the first question. Very often setting the deadlines and like determining the process and expectations from the persona we are looking for. Because very often expectations are changing during the process. And of course, it can be problematic for someone who is recruiting, but it's not about it. It really raises the risk of making mistake because of the fact that we are not comparing candidates to who we are looking for, but we are comparing candidates between them. So what's super important when we are having the bigger pool of candidates right now on the market, we should expect that, okay, we are having a lot of layoffs. So a lot of candidates are free on the market. So we can close roles quicker. And what we see from Q3 last year, so it's like almost a year, what's happening in talent acquisition area is the fact that the processes are taking 2 times longer. So hiring managers are waiting for the better candidate. They're expecting more candidates and better people, and they are just not coming in. So the processes are not closed for a longer time. People who are recruiting are much more frustrated. So if I'm the hiring manager and I expected someone to start from January and I'm in March, so I'm starting to be a little bit desperate. So and hiring when you are desperate, is the worst situation because you are able to lower your bar and you are accepting the candidates. And finally, very often you are in a risk of hiring the person who you will never hire as the first candidate you've seen, the second candidate you've seen, or first 5. So you are tired of hiring, so you are really hiring whomever after like 2-3 months of hiring. So that's the risk of making mistake. And the mistakes in talent are super, super expensive. We see that between 6 times of monthly salary, even up to 15, up to 16 right now, because you don't fire someone when you recognize you've made the mistake. You don't fire someone on the next day. It takes your time, and it takes more time on onboarding. You've spent like 3-4 months trying to help someone and trying to polish the process of onboarding, and finally after like 4-5 months you finally fire someone and you start the process from scratch. So you've lost a lot of money already, and you've also didn't earn when you count the alternative costs, you've also lost that money you didn't earn because you didn't have a good candidate. So that, like when we think about the final effects and the costs, it's like super, super important. And that's what I always say, that even if you are having a very data-driven hiring process and you are having a lot of people engaged in that process, but you feel as a hiring manager that you even sometimes cannot explain it, and you think like, I'm not sure, like I don't like this candidate, better don't hire. So we are having some data already about unconscious process of recognizing microaggressions and micro-expressions, and very often that's what we call intuitive acting, right? But there is something in it. When it comes to hiring process, very often hiring managers are able to catch this on unconscious level. Very often able to catch this unconscious microaggressions of candidates, and they somehow don't like them. They are not able to explain it, but still maybe that's that situation. So as I said, like better don't hire if you have any doubts.
That's interesting. You call it kind of like this unconscious kind of like recognition of microaggressions and everything. I would call it the gut feeling that it's like something's off. I can put a finger on it, but there's something about it. Cool. And the very important thing is also like recognizing the people that you already have on board, because you mentioned before, sometimes it's not about going to the market and hiring somebody new. Sometimes it's about like upskilling people that you currently have on the team and filling in the gap through that process. So how do you upskill people with great potential, in a largely undefined or evolving industry when you don't necessarily know what you're going to need like 2-3 months from now, but you need to be ready. You need to be constantly ready.
Yeah, that's true. Like it's also about having great people on board. And when you are able to build a team of people who are having great potential and the right mindset, and the right match to your values and to your practices. It's much more important when you're hiring. It's much more important to have people who are sharing your values, your practices, your behaviors, and they're having the right mindset. And as you said, potential for growth. And this is much more important than previous experiences and previous knowledge. Because I think it's obvious in the recruitment process, but people very often don't get it. So we are rating candidates based on what they've already did. And we think like, okay, is this person able to do that? So we are concluding from the previous experiences that, okay, they did it, right? Once or twice. So they are able to do that. And actually, the question we really should answer in a recruitment process is not a question if they are able to, but if they will do that. And that's the difference in motivation. That's the difference in the moment of life, professional life, private life. Sometimes people are burned out. Sometimes people are having these boundaries that, okay, like no matter what's happening, I just need to be free after 3 p.m. And like, sorry, but I have other priorities. And this person can be the best successful person from when we look at previous experiences. But if we really need a lot of hours spending together because we are building company from scratch, this is not the best candidate, right? So not if the person is able to do that, but if the person will do that. So that's the basic thing. And when we are thinking about growth and when we really have these people who are able to do that and they want to do that and they are planning to do and work with us, the best thing to grow their potential is setting the boundaries for that. So not believing that, okay, so if someone is having natural leadership skills, by the way, we don't have something like that. So all these, natural born leaders myths are just myths. So the fact that someone is extrovert, the fact that someone is having the willingness to lead the task, for example, if we are having three people in a room, is not the same as building someone really good environment for being the great leader and empower this person. So we need to set up the boundaries. So saying, okay, like I want you, if I'm your manager, I want you to be, let's say, the leader or the team leader or the senior in the next 3 months. These are 3 things I expect from you until that time. From my side, I will take care of this, this, and this. So expectations from you, also environment, what I can offer, what you will get from me as a manager, enabling you growth and helping you growth, and really basing on facts and also basing on regular checkups. So because very often we think like, okay, this person is having great potential, so let's put this person in a product role, for example, for a half a year, and we'll see what's happened. Like very often, nothing will happen because we don't have set it up expectations, we don't have timelines, we don't have what described what exactly should happen. So again, we need to stop treating people as a black box. So thinking like, okay, you don't know, you never know, people are unexpectable, so you are not able to forecast people behaviors. It's not true. Like as we are able to forecast, as we are able to plan sales process, marketing process, it's the same with HR. And we are able to base on the previous behaviors, we are able to base on the company patterns, we are able to gather the knowledge we have in organization and what we already know about people in our organization. If we can be wrong and we can make mistake, of course we can. And it's the same with estimations in engineering, and it's the same, I guess, your team is not doing things like that, mistakes in engineering team. But of course, like, every team needs to forecast and needs to plan. And other leaders are not afraid of that. But when it comes to people, very often we think like, you never know, we'll see, we're not able to plan. And it's not true, basically. So that's the mindset we should have when we are thinking about people's growth, planning that growth and boosting it.
I love it. Like, be specific, like have the goals, like expectations, be very conscious about like what do you really want from that person. I think setting the expectations is the key always. And you had mentioned values already. So how do you maintain values when you keep hiring? How do you make sure that, everybody in the company knows the values? And also like the company needs to remain a living organism to some extent. So how do you do that?
We really like using the pyramid. The pyramid built on values. On top of values, we are having practices. On top of practices, we are having behaviors. And on behaviors, we are having interactions. And these 4 elements, so values are like the general things that are important for us, the principles, we could say, but they are worth absolutely nothing when we don't have practices. Practices are the rhythm of organization. So how we support these values to make them really live. Very often like the corporate joke, like, okay, we are having our 5 values on a wall, but no one is able to say what do they mean. And that's the worst situation in a company. It's much better to have values undescribed or have it still in a gut feeling area or intuitive area than have them written on a wall or somewhere in a deck, but keeping them dead when it comes to acting. So the practices are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, regular actions we do to help bringing these values to life. And how we do that are behaviors. Behaviors, so do's and don'ts. So what does it mean that if we are having, for example, transparency as a value of the company, what does it mean? What are our do's? If we are able to share our salary with others, is it like transparent for everyone? Is transparency mean that CEO is sharing the financial results of the company? Does it mean that we are expecting people to describe the background of every decision they make? What exactly does it mean that we are transparent in acting? So if a regular teammate is forced to do the decision, does he or she know what exactly is expected and what boundary of, boundaries, what bar of transparency is acceptable and liked in a company? And on top of these behaviors, we are having interactions, and interactions are just small relations, small situations between people. So if, for example, we are having, being married or like meritocracy as a value, what exactly we do in interactions. So if it's acceptable to shout at someone when he or she is not right, for example, is it a part of the culture? So if we don't comment or if we don't feedback someone who is doing it and we are leaders, that means that really it is a part of organizational culture. As we very often say in HR Hints, the worst accepted behavior is the lowest bar of accepted organizational culture. So if we accept that people shout at each other, or if power games are the way of getting new information or learning about organization, and we don't comment on it and we don't moderate it, that means that it is our organization culture. So very often when we are acting and we are having described this do's and don'ts, we know what's okay, what's not. Very often people are not brave enough or don't have that boldness. And of course, I don't judge, because leaders firstly need to show them how to do that. But very often, if someone is new, for example, or someone is doing something not acceptable for organization, people don't know how to behave. So they don't know, like, if it's okay, if I have underperformer in my team, is it okay to go to my leader and say, like, that's enough is enough. I think that this guy is too weak for us, for example. Is it okay to do so or not? Is it okay to comment on someone's behavior or not? If we are having the meeting and someone is late and our value is to respect someone else's time and calendar, is it okay to react out loud? And like the answer to all these questions is absolutely yes. So you should react, and you should react out loud in a team. So in a team, in a company of other people. Very often the reaction is like, okay, I would prefer to hear it on one-on-one. And our answer should be like, no, because it's not your private thing. If you are late and it's the third time you do that and you know it's not acceptable, I'm not only sending a signal to you and say like, okay, please keep the rules and please follow them, but it's also the signal to others. So this is setting that bar of organizational culture, that we following the rules we've set it up as an organizational culture part.
I see. And what would you say are the different, people management approaches that you would consider cutting edge, but for some reason they're missed or underestimated or not that used widely?
Especially we see that when it comes to the differences between leaders, because very often we think that the leadership style is the style of the person. And actually it's not, because we are having different theories on democratic leadership or belonging, leadership of belonging, or bringing people on board when it comes to the decisions. And very often we think like, okay, this leader is having that type of rituals, or that's the way how he or she behave. And actually, it's much more about the company and the organizational culture. So good leaders should modify their types of leadership, of leading, depending on a company situation and depending on organizational culture in general. What's very often the mistake is the fact that people lead differently when it comes to different people, because they want to care about them. They want to be really following the calendar rule, and it's not the best thing because it takes too much time, and they start from setting up the very high expectations from people, and they really show them, okay, I can help you and I'll treat you pretty individually. But on the other hand, you can end up with just being unfair as a leader, because you spend very often, the problem is that you spend a lot of time with the people who are not the strongest part of the team. So great people are not supported well. So if you are good or great, so if you are like A player or even B plus player, leader is leaving you. So saying like, okay, I really need to take care of C players. And it's the worst. It's the worst option, because you invest in people who are already the cost you are raising, but you are just drowning them. So it's not the way finally.
Okay, and moving a little bit, from building to strategy. So, what common pitfalls do companies encounter when scaling teams, and how they can be avoided? The most common one.
When it comes to the strategy, and when it comes to the scaling teams in general, I think very often the problem is the timeline and like how we think about that in time. So people think like, okay, now we are having, let's say, like 25 people on board, and in half a year we should double that. Okay, so let's sit and write a hiring plan. So hiring plan and hiring strategy. And when we really think, okay, maybe we don't need 5 more people, maybe we need 3 and additional tool. That's the first thing. So adding people as solving every problem will be causing the layoffs in the next months, next years. So that's what we've learned from last 3 years, definitely. The second thing I would stress here is the problem that we are not regular in management. When team scale, we very often see that the processes that are working on the stage of having 15 people on board are not effective when we are having 50. And it really needs to, to have the rhythm like weekly rhythm or monthly rhythm to review what's effective, what works. Even doing a little retro every quarter, every month, just to be on the same page. Like, okay, we are having more people, but are we still pretty effective? And what very often is the mistake that the company is much bigger, but the effectiveness is still in the same point, especially when we are going through more than 80, 100 people on board. And then leaders are coming like, okay, we've lost control on hiring. So we don't exactly know what are the goals of every team. And the next thing important here, it's not about micromanagement when you are giving people the goals, when you are receiving these tasks or areas from them, but it's really important to have clarity what's expected. 90% of startups and scale-ups we work with don't have a really clear, understood for both sides, really clear goals to be done in the next, I don't say like next 2 years, it's not possible for startup, but in the next quarter, in the next 2 quarters. So people don't have that clarity, so they are doing additional work, and they are losing time, basically. So in scaling, in effectiveness and having really efficiency put as a top thing, it is a challenge very often. And the last big thing I would mention here is the fact that we as leaders and founders, very often we are struggling with maybe not monitoring the time, but really having that awareness where we locate our time. Scaling is a crazy ride. And even if you are not scaling in a very fast pace, but even if you are grow 10%, 15% a year, it's still a new company every year. And you really need to think where exactly you locate your time. And is it according to your goals? Is it according to the company goals? Because very often founders are spending the most of time in the places, and they locate that in the places that they are really hopelessly managed, and they put more and more time, and it's not working for 3-4 quarters. So that type of thinking that also your time is a pressure, and it is the thing to be managed, and it's the strategical thinking point. So I think that I would focus on that.
And how do you balance, between the need for speed and agility when scaling, but also the thoughtful decision making? So when do you know that, okay, I've spent so much time, I really need to hire, what is the cutoff point? How do you notice how much time to spend?
I think deadlines are super helpful here. So, and it's the same with managing people, and the same with trying the new business branch, for example, or making the decision that we need to cut that type of service or feature we want to build. We are testing it for the 1 quarter. We are building it for 1 quarter, and we are testing it for next 3. And if we are able to keep that deadline, we really see that, okay, we don't have much more time. We don't have more people time. We don't have more resources when it comes to energy, when it comes to additional time spent, people energy, and all that stuff. And we just made a decision okay, that's the date we really wanted to hit. We did it, and we didn't deliver. So, okay, maybe sometimes there is a need or there is a reason for prolonging it, and say okay, let's give ourselves 1 quarter additionally. But very often it's not. But very often we say okay, maybe let's try another thing. Maybe let's try another thing. It's in A/B tests. So this way is not working. The second way is not working. Maybe it's just not a good time, not a market. Maybe not these people. Maybe not that moment at all. Let this project die. I think people very often are having the problem, the struggle with ending things up. It's easy to start, especially when you are leading the startup and there are many opportunities, many customers you can work, many business models you can combine with and mix options. But it's super dangerous because it's lack of focus, as we all know. Lack of focus is the problem. So I think that letting things die or even cut them yourselves is super challenging and super important thing to do.
And that can be sometimes a scary thing as well. But last question for today, and I think an important question for all the leaders that are watching. So how do you see the role of leadership evolving as the company scales? And how do you adapt your leadership style to suit different stages of the growth?
I think that the power of leading and the power of having the supervisory on a company is a beautiful thing on one hand and very tricky thing on the other. And if you are having, for example, like bigger part of equity in your company, and you are the leader, it's super important to have someone controlling you. There is a quote that the power deprivates people, and the absolute power deprivates absolutely. So the more power you have, the more the bigger risk of mistakes you are having. So if you are having any leader in your company, or you are reporting to CEO, or you are the CEO yourself, or you have someone with whom you are able to work on a strategy, it's super important to have short-term goals when it comes to the leadership. Because very often we are focusing on operational things. Okay, so what exactly we deliver, what exactly needs to be done. But when it comes to being mature, when it comes to strategic thinking, very often we don't have that skills, and we very often don't have even this awareness to focus on it. And in my case, very nice thing are external mentors. So, and I'm having that rhythm that I'm changing mentors every quarter. And usually I'm having 1 or 2 every quarter, just to have the short-term goals, not to, let it drawn to or modify into the direction of friendship or a long-term coaching or whatever. No, just I mean the mentoring. So the mentoring of or from or done by someone who is like 2-3 steps and above me. So he's like, he or she is in the point where I want to be in the next year, in the next 2 years. And that's very often the problem, that we are finding mentors and we are finding people to help us that are 20 years in front of us. And that type of people are not able to help us because they don't have this perspective and they don't remember what exactly was problematic in our case. So having external mentors, if we are having peers, or if we are able to find someone inside the organization, that's the great thing as well. And the third thing is really, again, to have the list of things to do every quarter. Our company is working in a quarterly rhythm, so I do it quarterly. So what exactly I need to reach in interpersonal, intrapersonal, and role-related field. And of course, at the beginning, you are doing that mistake that you are having a lot of things, and you are writing a lot of things to do, and you don't deliver half of them, and you are frustrated, and you say like, okay, nothing is important, just sales is important, product is important, and delivery is important. So you don't care about yourself. If you grow, if you are able to learn new things, if you are able to have the external source of knowledge, of experience. And that's tricky thing. That's the super tricky moment because you are not into operations only. Your role as a leader, no matter if you are the team leader, the group leader, or the C-level, or the founder, you are just having not only this today perspective, but also you need to get that skill of making this step back. So that's super important to have that possibility, to have that moment when you are saying like, okay, enough is enough. I'm off for 2 days and I'm doing strategic work.
Thank you so much. That's it for today. Thank you so much for all the answers. It was super insightful. Roza, you're really genuinely a crypto legend, and it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, if you want to stay updated for more legendary tales, smash that subscribe button, leave a comment for what would you like to see in the future, and stay tuned as we'll be bringing more and more inspiring stories to you through Crypto Legends of Web3.